life, every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days.
Oh, really? Hello, everybody. Keith Engle for Let's Talk New York Sports right here on the Let's Talk Sports new station, network, I should say. And we're also on Northeast Stream Sports today. We're going on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and whatnot. You can tell I've been away for a couple of weeks as I couldn't distinguish the intro from the exit. Oh, my God. I'm so sorry. Anyway, welcome back to me. Welcome back to you. Been a couple of weeks since we've been on here. Good news coming up while I'm doing the show solo today. Dan Harris, my co-host, while he's still struggling with some health issues, as we all know, he will be rejoining me hopefully shortly or soon, maybe as soon as next week. And we may have a time change, or I prefer to do the show live because I like comments. I think Dan does too. But to accommodate Dan, we may have to make a time change to when we do this. So hopefully that doesn't put a crimp in too many people's viewing habits. We may have to do this at 5 o'clock on Fridays, or maybe even change a day. I don't know. We'll see how that goes, and we'll keep you abreast of that. And I want to thank Dan too, since he's been off the air. He's been doing a lot of work behind the scenes, as you probably noticed on Let's Talk Sports. And he's been doing a lot of work for me personally, producing, as I want to get back into interviewing. As I said, that's how I got started doing this podcasting, interviewing athletes that I was interested in my past. And Dan has already got some lined up. So we'll see when we schedule them. I'm going to record them because doing comments during an interview is a bit distracting. So we're not going to do that. But we'll be doing some stuff, and I'll give you some names. The first one will hopefully be next week. I'm waiting for some confirmation. In fact, I should check my email while we're doing this. But comedian Tom Dreesen, if you don't know Tom, Tom's been around since I was young. And opened for Frank Sinatra, was on the Tonight Show a lot, was on Letterman a lot, still has been on Letterman, well, up to Letterman left, I should say. Still touring, still doing comics, but he's a huge sports fan, huge Chicago sports fan. And I've been wanting to talk to Tom about his fandom and his great relationship with Frank Sinatra and other things. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Jim Kern, former great relief pitcher with the Texas Rangers and the Cleveland Indians. Who else we had coming up? Chuck Foreman, former running back for the Minnesota Vikings, finished his career with the Patriots. Great player in his time, great player. Jim Sundberg, former catcher with the Rangers and the Royals, part of the 85 world champion Royals. Kermit Washington, really, really, really good power forward in his day with the NBA, with the Lakers and Trailblazers, Clippers, a few other teams. Unfortunately, Kermit's not claim to fame. What he's most remembered for is a punch, which, again, wasn't thrown necessarily in malice. And there's a whole book about it John Feinstein wrote. We'll talk to Kermit a little bit about that and how it's affected his life. Rudy Tomjanovich was on the other end of that, but it was an ugly situation back in the 70s. But Kermit is a good person that did not personify who he was. And also Matt Robinson, former Georgia Bulldog quarterback and a quarterback with the Jets and the Browns, will be with us at some point too. So those are some of the people Dan's got lined up for me already. And we'll be talking some New York sports right now, and let's see who's with us today. So we welcome everybody with us, and hopefully there's Alan. Welcome back to me. Welcome back to you. Can't wait to have Dan back myself. Dan, I don't know, or Alan, excuse me. We're going to talk New York sports here in a second, but as a Ranger fan, I hope you know Jim Sundberg. Great defensive catcher back in the day. And Jim Kern, he was quite a character and a really good relief pitcher for some time with the Rangers and the Indians, I said. So, and he wrote a book, too, that I have on my Kindle, and I'll have to revisit a little bit before I interview him. So anyway, thanks to Alan. I'll be on with Alan Sunday night. We're going to pre-record it after my live show Sunday morning, and I don't know what we'll talk about, Alan. You can give me a couple of hints, I guess, what we want to talk about. I'm sure we'll talk about your Rangers. And we'll see how that goes. Right after this, I'll do the Major League Baseball update, Alan. You can tune in for that, too, and we'll talk some Rangers. Or we can save it for Sunday. Let's jump into some stuff in New York sports, guys. We'll start with baseball. The Yankees, I guess some good news maybe with the Frankie Montas surgery. Maybe he won't be out the entire season. He may be back in the second half. But still not good news. I mean, I worry from a negative standpoint as a Yankee fan. After what I've watched the last few years, I don't like some of the things that have happened. I'm happy about some of the youth infusion. Hey, Kenny Gifford, how are you this afternoon? Good to have you with us. You're too young. Look them up, man. Look them up. Look them up. Anyway, Montas will be out half the year, but I'm worried about Rondon's physical condition. That's, the signing to a big contract. I get that. And he's been healthy the last few years, been a really good pitcher. I'm not sure about his makeup for New York, and I'm not sure about his injury health, the ability to stay healthy. We all know Luis Severino has a problem staying healthy. So the Yankee pitching could become an issue quickly. We'll see as the spring training goes on here. And left field and third base are still a problem. And maybe that'll work itself out because some of the reports on the early reports on the Yankee camp is Anthony Volpe is really playing very well. Yankees love to have on him. Would love to have him on the roster. Now, he might get sent back to AAA for a little bit of seasoning. They could also send him back to kind of, save his service time. But I would love nothing more than Volpe to win the shortstop job or Peraza and the other one play third base. And then I don't have to worry about Donaldson anymore. And I'll just cut him for he's not going to be a guy I want sitting around on the bench. Or maybe the one who doesn't win shortstop plays second base. And we can trade Torres for some pitching or a left fielder. Because Aaron Hicks reports on Aaron Hicks this spring are not very good either. So we'll see how that goes. So anyway, Alan, back to that. You check out those guys. Check out Kern and especially Jim Sundberg. He's a great Ranger. Who's the new kid in the Yankees you're talking about? I think that's what I was just talking about. I think, Kenny, I answered your question. It's Anthony Volpe is one of them. And also Oswald Peraza. He's the kid they brought up late in the year last year. They're both shortstops. One could convert to second or third. And in the best case scenario, that's what will happen. They'll keep both these kids and make Torres the trade bait, in my mind. Yankees need that youth infusion. They did great keeping Aaron Judge. But you know what? And keeping Anthony Rizzo, who, by the way, is a bigger part of the glue of this team than people seem to realize. DJ's healthy by all accounts. I'm not happy that, and Bader's healthy. I'm not happy that we still don't have that ability. From what it seems, if I've got Hicks and I've got Donaldson and I've got all these big swingers, I need to be able to scratch out runs when I can't hit home runs. That's why the Yankees have struggled against premier pitchers. So probably, I'm guessing we're talking about Volpe and/or Perez. Kenny. Rangers actually play today to kick off spring training. There you go. Rangers and Royals. We can talk about that during the Major League Baseball hour in an hour if you like. A pitcher and a very hard thrower. How about Clark Schmidt? Kenny. Let me see who else. Let me see. Let me check the Yankee. Clark Schmidt's a guy that I like a lot. He could be the guy you're talking about. They're talking about stretching him out to be a starter. He pitched in pretty well in relief last year until he had some injury issues himself. Just want to see if there's somebody I might be missing. If I can get to there we go. Let's see. Let's see if there's somebody I could be missing here, Kenny. Yeah, if they've opened up their it's certainly not Montas, we know that. Could be Albert Abreu. He throws hard. kids, I'm looking at the kids on the 40-man roster. I got to believe it's Schmidt. Could be Randy Vasquez. So again, there's some good young pitchers on this team, and hopefully they don't have to rely on too many of them. It's okay. You know, I don't read things right most of the time either. So good news is for the Yankees. I think that youth infusion will be good for this team. It'll be good for Judge. It'll be good for Rizzo. It'll be good for LeMahieu. And we'll see how that all works out. But I'm a little concerned, as I said, about the pitching. We'll see how that all works out. Right now, I mean, you'd be looking at a rotation of Cole, Rondon, Cortez, Severino, and Domingo Germán, who pitched well in spots last year. Not crazy about him still being on this team for other reasons. But I'd like to see Clark Schmidt get a shot at that fifth spot as well. And I think he will this spring. And then the bullpen, I think the bullpen looks pretty good. Tommy Canley's back, as you may or may not know, local product, graduated from Shaker High School here in the capital region. Michael King should be back healthy. And then you've got obviously Trevino and Loaizaga, and Clay Holmes is slated to be the closer. To me, the key here is Loaizaga. So. And Gleyber Torres is somebody who I really think you might see moved in the spring training. We'll see. Did they really do anything special to be better so they don't flame out? No. I mean, this is my biggest problem, Kenny. The holes in the lineup, like Hicks and Donaldson, are still there. There is talk that they've done something to help Judge with his swing a little bit. I hope they didn't tinker with it too much because the guy's a great player. But to help him a little bit against some of the better pitchers, change his swing just a little bit. I think it'll change his stance a little bit. And we'll see how that goes. But to me, again, to be better, I think Bader makes him better because he's a guy who can help scratch out runs when they can't hit home runs. This is where they flamed out. The reason they flame out in the playoffs is they don't score runs against elite pitchers. So they run into their Astros and they get, their butts handed to them. Losing Benintendi didn't help. That would have helped them in the playoffs. It would have helped them this year, but they lost him. He signed with the White Sox. Having him and Bader in the outfield with Judge defensively would have been very good. And offensively, those are two guys that could help you scratch out more runs. Hopefully the kids will be those type of players and that they will be taught, to play small ball when you can. You don't need to play small ball all the time, but there are times you need to just scratch out runs. This team has not ever shown the propensity to be able to do that. So, to your point, Kenny, no, I don't think they have improved very well there. I don't think it's the 60-plus homers. I mean, the guys have 50 before, too. And Jesus, I mean, Babe Ruth had 60 and, high 50s and 60s consistently. Didn't hurt his swing. I don't disagree with you that they get locked into that swing, and you need to be able to adapt with two strikes, let's say, or depending on the game situation. That's what I would like to see, something better. And I think Judge does it a bit. I mean, remember, the guy's hitting over 300 as well. He was going to win a Triple Crown last year, or was close to winning a Triple Crown last year. So, I mean, this isn't a Joey Gallo situation where it's swinging for the fences or it's a strikeout. Does he strike out a lot? Yeah, but he also hits for a high average, and he has a high on-base percentage, too, so he does walk. So, Judge and the home run's not as big a deal until you run into those elite pitchers, as I said, and then we don't make the adapt. Kind of a spoiler. You can pick Toronto to win the East. I listen here. I said earlier today on Are You Serious? And we're talking about New York sports, but this is related. I would say Toronto is the team with the most pressure on in the American League. It's World Series or bust for Toronto. If they don't get, I was going to talk about this in the on Major League Baseball update here in an hour. So tune in then. We'll talk more about it if you want. But if Toronto doesn't make the World Series, they're going to bust that team up, guaranteed. He'll be a new manager. And Schneider better be careful anyway, because he's got a pretty accomplished manager sitting next to him now in one Donnie Baseball. Don Mattingly, for those of you who are not versed in my Yankeeisms. He's the bench coach in Toronto. What are you saying here? Yankees haven't done much besides bring back Judge and Rizzo. Well, again, they brought in Rondon, and some people are more excited about that than me. They do get much healthier in the bullpen. Well, they get returned health, hopefully, and it continues to stay healthy in the bullpen, which helps them. You do have the youth infusion, which I like. As I said, I think that's why I'm hoping. First, you got Cabrera, who's going to play all over the field. He's a young guy. You've got Bader, who brings a whole different energy to this team, as you saw in the playoffs last year. And this kid only played a handful of games last year. So they have improved, but they haven't improved enough. So it's a lot more. It's a lot more than just bringing back Judge and Rizzo. Because Bader, listen, I mean, he played like 10 regular season games. And he's a really good player, an exciting player, too. Yeah, well, again, yeah, I got a little nervous when I first read it too, Kenny, but the way I understand it, it's not really his swing. It's more his stance in certain situations to give him a better chance against the better pitchers. I wouldn't mess with him too much either. Don't mess with a good thing, but I don't think it's anything major. I think it's a minor little tweak, and he'll start the season out 1 for 30, and we'll all be in, uproar. What did they do to him? Not saying the Yankees will fall off, but Toronto will give them a tough fight. Listen, Toronto is the best team in the division as far as I'm concerned. Whether that means they'll win is a different story. The Yankees could be very good and win the World Series, or the Yankees could be very good, win 100 games, and flame out the first round again. Right now, they won't beat the Astros. They have to make some changes still to beat the Astros. The Astros are the best team in the American League until they get beat. But Toronto's really good. And if you're free at the 3:00 hour, Alan, pop in. We'll talk a lot more baseball around the league. Another sport he can't find a home in. What are we talking about there, Kenny? Another sport you can't find. I'm not sure what we're talking about. Oh, Oklahoma. Well, actually, I will give Alan credit for. He does. He is mainly a Ranger fan, which I'm sure he and I will have some. I predicted the Rangers are going to be not much better than last year. But he is a Cubs fan as well. So, Alan, we got to work on this one team thing. Alan, you're forgetting the O's. Listen, good point. And I don't want, again, we're talking New York sports, but again, it's related because we're talking American League East at the moment, I guess. The Orioles will be I don't think the Orioles have the firepower to stay with Toronto and the Yankees, maybe the Blue Jays, or I'm sorry, maybe the Devil Rays. Oops, sorry, the Rays. Can't say devil, we offend people. I really think that's why they dropped it. I don't know if they have the firepower. They'll be good. Remember, they recovered from a really bad start last year to get themselves right in the middle of that wild card hunt. I would expect that they'll be possibly on the wild card fringe again this year. Just think they're a couple players short still. We'll see how that goes. But I'm not forgetting about the O's. OKC used to be, that's a good point. All right. Let's not get too far off the beaten track. Let's move over to the Mets. What's going on in Met Land? I don't know if I got a lot to talk about with the Mets. Let me find the one thing. I know there's been no progress in the Pete Alonso contract negotiations. We know that. Senga is getting acquainted with the other Met pitchers. He's performed pretty well here in the early stages of spring training. The Mets are happy so far with what he's done. Who's this guy here? I don't think we care that much about that. The Mets are pretty much set. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of roster, other than bench players. I don't think there's a lot of jockeying for jobs to be done here. I think the Mets are probably looking to get out of spring training healthy. Again, the major concern for them is going to be the pitching. The age of their stars, it's 40, but I think the Mets made some good decisions, and we'll get into this more with Alan in another venue, I'm sure. The Mets not re-signing DeGrom for the money that he got allowed them to do a lot. It allowed them to bring in Senga. It allowed them to re-sign not Conforto, but Nemo. It allowed them to get Diaz in here. I got to look at their roster because they had like 5 guys. There's like 5 guys they were able to bring in or return to the roster that they might have had trouble doing otherwise. I mean, of course, we've got deep pockets Cohen, who's going to spend whatever he needs to spend. Oh, I forgot Verlander. They got Verlander. They basically were able to get Verlander, David Robertson for the bullpen. They were able to bring in Navarez to catch or share the catching duties. And they were able to re-sign Nemo and bring in Senga, all basically for the money that it would have cost them for DeGrom. So I think the Mets have done themselves well here this offseason. And I think the Mets need to stay healthy, get their bench situation settled. I'm not crazy about Mark Canha in left field, but there's some other options there as well. Tommy Pham can play the outfield a little bit when he's not DHing. I still think the Mets might have if they have a problem, it's that left field and then the DH situation. We'll see whether Vogelbach, is that his name? Vogelbach. I keep thinking of Vogelson from Last Man Standing. And you should watch that if you have a chance, but I don't know why I mark myself away at work and people call me anyway. What do we got here? Sorry. Kenny, New York sports, downstate or upstate. Either way, we can talk anything in New York sports. I get into I've gotten more into college basketball when on this show, we talked Syracuse a little bit near the end of the show. I'm more well-versed in the college scene than Dan was or is. So, since I've been going solo, I've done more of that. But we talk about sports wherever it happens in New York. Plus, we do include the New England states a little bit when it comes to college basketball and one football team. Otherwise, it would be no sense to me being on this show. Mets, I'd say, are the third best team in the East right now. I'm not sure I agree with that. And I'll tell you why. I think the Phillies might take a step back. I know the Phillies are excited about some of the things they've done this year. I do think the Mets are I think the Mets and Braves will go to the wire again. Let's put it that way. I know you're counting the Phillies in as the team better than the Mets. But I'm not sure that Harper's going to be able to play in the field early in the year, and the defense is still an issue. Don't forget the defense is still an issue here, and the starting pitching after Wheeler and Nola is an issue as well. Tawan Walker will win a bunch of games in the first half of the season and flame out in the second half. I'd like to sign Trey Turner, but, it's going to hurt him later on, 11 years. This isn't Aaron Judge we're talking about. I'm not crazy about the Craig Kimbrell signing. I mean, their offense is really, really good. Their defense is still bad to really, really bad. So this is why I get concerned there. A stacked East. I would definitely say a stacked East. I don't think the Phillies will fall off the map and I like Rob Thompson. Rob Thompson, I talked him up a lot last year during the Major League Baseball update, and we'll do more of that this year. But again, I think the Phillies' defensive liabilities will hurt them in the long run here. DeGrom's not feeling well. He's made some progress, I guess, the last couple of days, but he's already got a problem with his side. And Alan's going to say that's no big deal. It's not his arm, but this is how it starts with DeGrom. This is how it's always started with DeGrom. I'm going to tell you, Alan, if you get 15 games out of him this year, it's going to be a lot. And we'll cover more of that, on the Major League Baseball update and Alan's show if that's where he wants to go. Not having a show. Not having a show is what I meant. New York State's ports. I'm not sure what we're talking about. I'm lost, Kenny. You know what? I got a great book on Kindle. I liked the Braves when I was a kid. I was a Knick fan, but I kind of liked the Braves, Bob McAdoo. I read a great book about the Buffalo Braves. Be great if we could. So we do talk about Buffalo, and because their only team plays in New York, obviously, in football. But the Buffalo Braves were a lot of fun. Jack Ramsey, you remember the Jack Ramsey Buffalo Braves, right, Kenny? That was a really good basketball team. Randy Smith, Bob McAdoo, Jim McMillan, Ernie D. Gregorio. That was a fun team to watch. Are they coming back? I doubt it. I don't think the NBA is coming back to Buffalo. And, it's a shame because Buffalo supported that team, at least when they were winning. Ernie D, absolutely. Ernie D. DeGorio. It's funny. He hurt his knee. He was really a good, exciting point guard out of Providence, and he hurt his knee in his second year, I want to say. Just as Buffalo was ascending, they really gave the Celtics fits and the Bullets fits. So those were the two teams that were strong. The Knicks were, starting to kind of wane. Their success was starting to wane as the Braves ascended. And the Bullets, which is offensive, we can't say that anymore. They're the Wizards now. Maybe that's when it all started. The Wizards, I can't say it. The Bullets, that's who they were. And the Celtics, back in the day, they really gave them some tough battles in the playoffs, and it just didn't. They just couldn't get over the top. And then Dr. Jack left, went to Portland the first year there. He wins the NBA championship. So, speaking of the NBA, let's move on. Not much to talk about with the Nets, by the way. So we've traded. Captain Nut Job in I've already forgotten his name, Kyrie Irving. We moved Durant out of here, which should have happened before the season. The Nets really have hamstrung themselves. I mean, talent-wise, this roster is not very good at all. I'm sorry. It's not. This is no disrespect to Smith or Cameron Johnson or Mikal Bridges or Spencer Dinwiddie, one of the best names in sports, right? Dinwiddie. This is not a team that's going to win any games. Jack Vaughn did a great job with his team. They fell apart because they were nuts. They were dealing with a bunch of nuts. And maybe they can build something around Bridges. He's 26 years old. Nick Claxton has played decent basketball. Dinwiddie's still only 29 years old. Maybe they can build something around these guys. But they're not going to, maybe they hang on and get into the play-in, the play-in tournament for the regular playoffs. But don't expect any great shakes here. I will tell you, though, on the other side of town, the Knicks are playing some great basketball. Oh, what do we got here? Ernie ran into West and hurt. Is that West Unseld? Is that I don't remember that specific that specifically, but I don't doubt it because that was one tree trunk of a man, right? Wes Unseld. Oh my gosh, amazing. The Knicks have won. Let's see, what did they won? They won 3 in a row. They won 6 of their last 8. Since acquiring Josh Hart, this team is playing really good basketball. This was a great move for the Knicks. This is a versatile kid who can play some small forward, can play small guard, can even play the big forward if he has to. These teams all play small anyway. And he's played with Brunson before. He's really added a dimension to this team that they didn't have before. And that's come at the expense mostly of RJ Barrett, who right now I would say is that, he may, RJ Barrett may not be one of the building blocks going forward. It may turn out he gets moved in the offseason because I think Hart's here for the long term. And with the development of Grimes and some of the other kids that are developing, I think it's possible. And I was a big RJ Barrett fan. I think it's possible RJ Barrett may not be long for this team. Because again, now you've got Brunson, you've got Grimes, you got McBride who's played pretty well. You still got Quickly. You got Hart who plays that position as well. The guard. I'm talking about guard, basically small forward, right? They're overloaded with players at these 2 to 3 positions. And you got a bunch of them who can play all of them. Josh Hart can play, point guard, shooting guard, and small forward. RJ Barrett really can't play the point. Quickly can play a small shooting guard and point guard. Miles McBride is getting more time. Quentin Grimes is getting a lot of time at shooting guard. He's a really good defensive player, which helps because Brunson isn't the best. He's not a shutdown defensive player by any means, and neither is Barrett. But Hart's a good defender. This team is not going to be in the play-in. This team is probably – let me go back to the standings here for a second. This team is probably going to – and I'll be off with basketball in a second, Kenny. But we got to cover the New York sports. This team is probably going to finish, I'm going to say they're going to finish at least 5th. I think they'll push the Cavaliers. They could finish in the top 4 in the East. Anything can happen in the playoffs. Is this team ready to go to an NBA championship? No, I don't think so. I think there's a piece missing. Maybe 2. But they're much better than they were last year and much better than they were to start this season. Josh Hart is a type of player they absolutely needed. And he brings an energy to court whenever he comes into a game. He's got a relationship with Brunson as they went to Villanova and were stars together there during championship runs. And they did very well. So that'll be that. The Knicks are in pretty good shape. The Nets are not. Syracuse needs a new coach. Never thought much. Listen, I can't knock Jim Boeheim. Jim Boeheim has been at Syracuse for about 80 years. Just kidding. But it's about 50 years, right? 72. He went to school there. So probably nearly 60 years he's been there. He's 78 years old, though. I thought he did very well with what this is Syracuse, upstate New York. This isn't UCLA. This isn't, Kentucky. This isn't, a hotbed of basketball. They had good teams under, I think Roy Hartfield, I want to say, was a coach before, something along those lines, before Boeheim. He's done a good job. He won a national championship there. He's been to, I don't know, 4 or 5 Final Fours. He's been able to get really good talent there. Not recently. The game's passed him by, Kenny, right? Let's focus. I'll focus on the present rather than the past. I'm not going to defend him. I think his record speaks for itself. I think he's been a very, very, very good college basketball coach. But recently, and basically since the Big East, they left the Big East. not Jim Boeheim and basketball's fault. That's a football decision. When they went to the ACC, things changed a lot. They didn't have those, and because not having those traditional rivalries that they had every year with Georgetown, with St. John's, with all the Big East, the old Big East teams, I think hurt recruiting. Jim Boeheim's not going to be able to recruit in down Tobacco Road. Jim, and again, these schools all go to New York City now. He doesn't have any advantage over other schools anywhere. I mean, you can't, and I've said this a few times here and on the college basketball show, Kenny. Joe Girard is a really nice player from Glens Falls here locally again. He can't be your best player, and you're going to be able to compete in a power conference in college basketball today. Now, with that said, Syracuse they've held their own this year. They're not awful. They haven't fallen off the table. They're what are they? 16-12, 9-8 in the league. They're not gonna. They beat a good North Carolina State team last week. They're not going to the big dance unless they really have a great ACC tournament, maybe even win it. But leaving the Big East was a huge mistake for Syracuse. They did it for football reasons. I get it, but the football team hasn't benefited from it. Well, they had to go somewhere because there is no Big East football anymore. But Jim Boeheim, the game's passed him by. The recruiting, and it's not all his fault. But he has 78, and he's crankier than ever. And I know I want to hear more of the story with him and the North Carolina State coach, because I know they had some words after that game. The clip is hilarious to watch, but I can't tell what's going on. Bam's kind of laughing through the whole thing, but it didn't look like ha 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 laugh. It might have been more sarcastic. I don't know. But anyway, Syracuse really, really needs to kind of figure out what they're going to do. They need a succession plan. They had one, and Boeheim kind of blew it up. They had Mike Hopkins, who did really well. He left the program, if you remember. He was going to take over, I think, in 2015 or 16. And then Boeheim said, one more year. And Hopkins said, I'm tired of waiting. And he went to Washington and did well for a time. He's probably going to get fired this year. Boeheim says there's a succession plan in place. I'm not so sure there is. We'll see. Elsewhere around college basketball, St. John's, another abysmal season. They started to make some strides under Mike Anderson the last couple of years. They have gone backwards. Posh Alexander, who was one of the most exciting players in the league, has regressed. He's got some great talent. Otherwise, he brought in some great recruits. They can't win. Get at the best players in the country. If you can't win games, there's 7-11 in the Big East, 17-12 overall. Going to the NIT again. Mikey Anderson's probably going to get traded. There's no reason that Seton Hall, Shasheen Holloway, who took St. Peter's to the Elite Eight last year, should come in his first year with inferior talent to what St. John's has and Mikey Anderson has, and they're playing better basketball. 9-8 in the league, 16-12. They got off to a horrendous start. Nobody's going to want to play this team come the Big East tournament. And all the college basketball tournaments will get started here soon. We'll talk. I'll give you a little rundown on the ones that affect New York teams. So St. John's, Seton Hall, who knows? They might have an outside shot to get into the tournament, I guess, if they were really continue to finish. I think they got one regular season, maybe two regular season games left, and the Big East tournament will start. A good run in a tournament, who knows? They might get in. UConn has started to kind of get back in their groove a little bit. Andre Jackson from Amsterdam, upstate here, has played an integral part in their success. This is still a team that might make some noise in the NCAA tournament. We'll see. Rutgers has started to fall back in the Big Ten. They were ranked. They got themselves ranked here earlier a few weeks ago, and then they kind of fell backwards. And right now, I would say they are solidly on the bubble as far as making the NCAA tournament. 9-8 in the league, 17-11. They're probably in right this minute. But, Rutgers had better get it together. We've talked about Colgate. Colgate will likely be a NCAA representative, but will probably go out in one round. The interesting thing to watch in the MAC, Iona's gotten really hot. Siena did really well early on in the MAC. Upstate here. We talked upstate. We talk Albany. We won't talk Albany State anymore because they're bad. And Coach Killings is probably going to be fired the minute the season's over, given everything that's going on the court and off the court there. But Iona has won 7 in a row. I think 7 in a row since they lost to Siena up here in Albany a couple of weeks ago. 3 weeks ago now, I think. Siena's still second, 11-5. Going to have a hard time getting back. This is going to be a one-bid league, right? So whoever wins the tournament is going to go. Right now, I think Iona's in the driver's seat. Siena really was hot early in the year. They've cooled off. Really good coaching. But I think Siena could win the tournament, but I think Iona's got to be the odds-on favorite right now. And maybe Ryder, maybe Quinnipiac could upset one of these teams or both of these teams, but I think it'll come down to a Siena-Iona final, and the winner will go to the NCAA. And Rick Pitino, by the way, speaking of Iona, is starting to really make it clear that at 70 years old, Iona is not going to be his last job. He said when he came here, because remember, he was a bit of a pariah. He said when he came here, it was his last coaching job. Now he's saying, I'd like one more shot at the big time. So we'll see. Kenny, money takes precedent over anything else. I'm assuming that was probably posted when I was talking about the move to the ACC by Syracuse. You're right. All of the football, we talk about it a lot, right, on the college sports huddle. All of this realignment that is, in my mind, taking a lot of the charm out of college sports, has been all about money all along. Even, going back before these big TV contracts. I mean, even the BCS and going away from the poll system to pick a national championship, all of that was geared towards money. They used the auspice of wanting to have a true champion and not, one that's voted on. It was all about money and being able to set up, made for TV matches. And listen, we've evolved to where we are, and I'm okay with the playoff, and I'm okay with a lot of these things. And I guess I've got to learn to accept more things better than I am. Yes, almost everyone, not most, all of them, Alan. And then the basketball teams are left to kind of figure it on their own. It hurt UConn a ton. Time is it? We've got a few minutes left, and I want to get into a little bit of football anyway. It hurt UConn a ton. In football, they didn't have a home. The Big East football schools decided to go to the ACC. Syracuse, Pittsburgh, BC. I think Virginia Tech was there at the time. Miami, all decided to go to the ACC. Basketball teams have no choice but to go with them. They didn't want to go there. And then teams like UConn, they had no conference to go to for football. And then I think for a couple of years in basketball, they left and went to the AAC. They were out of fish out of water. They came back to the Big East. Took them a few years to get the ship righted. But Danny Hurley's doing a really good job there now. But you're right. I mean, every single realignment is football-based because that's where the money is, right? There's money in college basketball. Not like there is in college football. I mean, there's the tournament generates a ton of money. TV contracts for regular season games that generate a lot of money, but there's not as many eyeballs watching college basketball on a Tuesday night as there is on a Saturday afternoon or a Saturday night in college football. So, yeah, I mean, again, as Kenny said, it's money. Enjoyed this. Would like to listen more, but it's my time to get your mind right. Yeah, I know what you mean, Kenny. Pop in. We may change the time of this show to kind of help Dan out. We'll see how that's going to work out. I'll let you guys know. Kenny, thanks for popping in today. I always love having you on the show. And you're all Roberts, by the way. I don't think you were with me Wednesday night. You're all Roberts. You were touting him weeks ago. Best team in Oklahoma. We'll talk more about him Wednesday. Pop in. Oh gosh, let's move on to some football before we run out of time here. What's new? The Jets and the Giants. Listen, the quarterback situations in New York are really fluid right now. Derek Carr, while I was away, came in, visited with the Jets. Apparently went very well. They all love each other, all lovey-dovey. But there's still a faction in the Jets camp that wants to go after Aaron Rodgers. He came out of his groundhog hole, or he saw his shadow, and I don't know whether it means he's going to be in Green Bay 6 more weeks or it's an early trip to New York. I think he came out early because he heard the talks of New York are heating up, and he doesn't want to come there. I think Aaron Rodgers, and listen, if I'm a Jet fan, and I'm not, I got a tough decision. I got a team that could win right now, maybe, if I had an Aaron Rodgers type quarterback. But is it worth bringing all that drama in with you? I don't think Aaron Rodgers would survive in a media circus like New York. He can barely survive in Green Bay where there's 15 people. Sorry, Green Bay, I don't mean to insult you. But the problem is the other options are no good either. Derek Carr, nice guy. You want to get to the playoffs? Sure, bring him in. He'll have some really good numbers with the skill set, the skill players that are there, and you'll get to the playoffs maybe, but you're not going to win a game. Because the last time I looked, he's got as many playoff wins as Zach Wilson. Now, if I'm the Jets and I really want to shake up the town, I might blow Daniel Jones away with an offer. How would that play out in the tabloids? Danny Dimes, I hate that nickname, by the way, playing across the other locker room for the Jets. Doubtful it'll happen. Giants can franchise Jones. They don't have to they don't have to make him an offer. I think they can franchise him twice. Not sure about that. And I'm not sure what the franchise number is. That's probably around $28 million. It's probably going to go up. But Giants are I'm going to predict right now they don't sign him to a long-term contract this year. They should. Daniel Jones has become a really good quarterback. Are there better ones? Is he Patrick Mahomes? Absolutely not. But take a look at the playoff quarterbacks this year. I did this before. He's better than half of them. Where's my... Let me do this again. Who were the playoff quarterbacks last year? He's better than... he's not better than Josh Allen, that's for sure. He's not better than Joe Burrows. I think he's better than Trevor Lawrence right now. He may be better than Herbert. Herbert. Probably not as good as Hurts. I think he's better than Dak Wilson. Listen, I'm sorry, Dak Wilson. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Dak Prescott. We'll talk about that one day, too, on a different show. There's some intrigue there with a quarterback situation that we'll talk about. He's better than Kirk Cousins. He's better than whoever's going to play for Tampa Bay. He's probably better than Tom Brady this year. And he's better than San Francisco quarterbacks. Giants are probably going to franchise him and find out whether he stays. If he continues to progress, then they'll sign him. But the price won't be going down. The price is going up. Absolutely. Hey, CA, how are you, buddy? Unusually busy Friday. Yeah, me too. Speaking of Giants, Davis Webb is Denver's quarterback coach right now. That's very interesting. They might have another New York connection out there too if Rex Ryan takes the defensive coordinator position. I haven't seen an update on that in a couple of days, so I'm not sure what's going on there. Dan would be livid if he heard you say Daniel Jones should be with the Jets. I don't know. Maybe he would be. He shouldn't be. Dan certainly knows how I feel about Daniel Jones. I'll take him on the Patriots tomorrow, and I love Mac Jones. But Dan knows damn well I've sat here and said that the only reason people are down on Daniel Jones is because he was a 6th pick in the draft. And I will tell you right now that if the Jets had Daniel Jones this year, that team very likely, they definitely would have made the playoffs. But they win a game. They might have gone to the AFC Championship game. I don't know. Anything could have happened. That team is an established leading a leader at quarterback away from being a really good football team. I don't have a horse in this fight, or a dog in this fight. Nick's metaphor there. I don't have a dog in this fight. I hate the Jets. I hate the Giants. As a football fan, I can sit back here and watch the eye test. Daniel Jones has gotten better every single year in the league. Every year. To this year, he's in the top 10 quarterbacks in the league. Make sure, Dan, if you're listening, don't just agree with me. If you agree with Alan and you hate that move, you make sure you talk about that when we're back together. I was going to watch, watch a morning show I did today, and I made a odd scenario that could happen in Dallas. I will, sure. I'll check it out, Alan. There's a lot of weird things I think could happen in Dallas. And there's a lot of scenarios that may have Dak Prescott not being their quarterback next year. CA, Aaron's going nowhere. I agree. He came out, he saw a shadow, which I think means 6 more years in Green Bay. I really don't know what happens when you come out of the cave. A cave, by the way, that had a king-size bed, master bedroom, a beautiful bathroom suite, I understand. Just no lights. Anyway, what do you got here? He saw what happened to Brett. Listen, what happened to Brett Favre in New York would be minuscule compared to what would happen to Aaron Rodgers in New York, especially at this point, because Aaron Rodgers is like this close to being Kyrie Irving. AFC is loaded. Agreed. The AFC is loaded. Only Miami would have interest him due to only things. What is he searching for? I mean, he's come out with great clarity, so we'll see what he has to say, CA. I got to tell you, Aaron Rodgers, I used to like Aaron Rodgers. I really did like Aaron Rodgers. And he's gone around the deep end. You know, somewhere along the line, somebody steered him wrong. And, you know, look at his life doesn't suck. He's got $50 million a year he's making. He's dating supermodels and, you know, hot race car drivers and actresses. So anyway, what else is going on? There'll be some cuts made for all these teams. I'm not going to get into them today. Buffalo, I got much to say about Buffalo right now. Buffalo's Buffalo. The New England, watch out the New England. There's some weird stuff going on in New England. Everybody loves and everybody is on board with Mac Jones right now, except the one guy that matters. Everybody speaks glowingly of Mac Jones, even with this tough year he just had, except Bill Belichick. And that's what matters. Now, I think Bill's lost a little bit of power. I'm sure Bob Kraft told him he had to get himself an offensive coordinator, a real coordinator. I feel bad for Matt Patricia. He was put in a no-win situation last year. But Bill O'Brien, good move getting Adrian Clem to coach the offensive line. Dante Scarnecchia, who's a legend in New England, coached the offensive line most of his 30 plus years there, along with other responsibilities. He's been trying to get them to hire Adrian Clem for a few years now. Comes with, and there's no better recommendation you can get than that. If you're a New England fan, you understand. They're going to have to make some tough choices on cuts. I mean, they may cut some pretty big names. Devontae Parker, Hunter Henry, Trent Brown, Jalen Mills. I think all are in trouble. That's about $55 million right there in cap saving. They could all be in trouble. People to watch. What do you got here, Alan? Jets told Derek Carr, I saw this. I mean, yeah. Not in the NFL. He might probably meant if he started playing baseball today. What's the criteria in the NFL for making Hall of Fame? Playing a long time, putting up numbers, winning Super Bowls. Winning Super Bowls doesn't seem to be very high on the it should be. I mean, if Derek Carr goes to the Hall of Fame, look at he's still fairly young. He could win a couple of Super Bowls and he'll be in the Hall of Fame, which is probably what the Jets are talking about. Will he be a first ballot Hall of Famer? No. Phil Simms wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer. Terry Bradshaw wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't think. Tom Brady will be. Another reason Aaron Rodgers isn't retiring this year, CA. He's not going to retire and have to share the spotlight with Mr. Tom Brady. Uh-oh. I see a comment in here from Dan Harris of Let's Talk Sports. He might be on to Alan's comment about Daniel Jones. Let's see. Giants let go of Sterling Shepard. Probably a good move. He's always hurt. He's got some talent, but Alan, I would not be livid after. There you go. And now here's the thing, and Dan knows that I stuck up for Wilson too. So I don't want to pretend that I never said Zach Wilson would make it. I thought Zach Wilson would make it in New York, and I was wrong, dead wrong. I wasn't wrong about Daniel Jones, but Zach Wilson just didn't grow up in the second year. Maybe the Jets didn't do him any favors. I don't know, but I'm starting to think Zach Wilson is one of those situations where he's not going to make it in New York. He may have to go somewhere else. So Dan would take quarterback. Jones is better than that. I'm going to tell you, Dan, and you and I can talk about this when we're back together, hopefully next week. If Daniel Jones was on the Jets this year, that team very possibly, they would have had a chance to advance in the playoffs. And who knows? You get to the playoffs, nobody knows what can happen. There's really good talent everywhere in that team, except the quarterback position right now. And again, I was wrong, dead wrong about Zach Wilson for sure. Consider one of the best, which requires him to be at least another. We're talking about Aaron Rodgers is in the Hall of Fame. The comment that Alan was referring to is Derek Carr. Aaron Rodgers in the Hall of Fame now. He won't need another ring. That would help. And if he were to lead another team, I don't know. Miami might be a good spot for him. The Packers are going to demand a king's ransom, though, so you better be prepared to give up, your future. So if I'm a Jet fan, I don't want, number one, the drama that comes with him, and I'm going to have to wrap this up here pretty quick. I don't know that I want the drama that comes with him, and the fact that I got to give up a king's ransom to win now and maybe forfeit my future. But my options aren't very good. Ken, if I'm the Jets, go sign Danny Dimes. I hate that nickname. right, guys. Keith Engle for TGI Sports Talk. My co-host Dan Harris. Thanks for popping in, and Dan will be back with me very soon, so you won't have to look at my ugly mug all alone, and you can turn down the volume on my side and listen to Dan, because Dan's got a lot smarter things to say than I do. I can tell you that. Let's see if I can play the outro instead of the intro. You guys have a great Friday.